기자부대, hop on the beat!
The release of the last batch of Stone Ocean's anime also brings us its final opening. This serves as not only the final opening of Part 6, but also one that serves as a cap to the entire JoJo series up to this point. So I'd like to take the time to analyze the opening for the usual number of hidden details and Easter eggs that were included, and for this opening in particular, how it manages to pay tribute to the series as a whole. Obviously, this video will spoil the entirety of Part 6, so avoid watching if you haven't already finished the season. The opening song is titled Heaven Falling Down, I think a fitting title for a Stone Ocean opening. It's sung by Sana, who had previously worked on openings for the Mob Psycho 100 series. This is her first JoJo-related project. The lyrics are written by Shoko Fujibayashi, who has contributed to multiple JoJo openings in the past. The opening begins with Jolene watching the clash between Star Platinum and the world that took place at the end of Part 3. The final shot of Star Platinum here is taken directly from a moment in Part 3's first opening, Stand Proud. The fight is shown to take place in one of Jotaro's discs, which is taken away by Savage Garden, as it happened at the end of the first batch. Next, we see Jolene looking back at the events of her life throughout the story. First, the car accident that was orchestrated to put her in prison, as well as her meeting with Jotaro and his current state after the discs were removed. One thing I should point out is how the moon appears multiple times throughout the opening. Each time, the phase of the moon slowly changes to be closer to the new moon, the phase Pucci was waiting for to initiate his plan. Next, we're shown each of the main characters with an image in the background representing their story. Behind Hermes, we see the scene of Gloria witnessing the murder committed by Sportsmax, as well as Gloria's body being discovered. Behind Anasui, we see his girlfriend cheating on him and the disassembled objects from his childhood. Behind Emporio, we can see the skeleton of his mother in the ghost room. This is actually the first ever appearance of this body, since before, we only saw one of her bones that Emporio gave to Jolene. For Weather Report, the background starts off as only clouds, but this is changed in the final opening to be the scene of Perla's suicide. After the group is shown together, we see Pucci with the three sons of Dio in silhouette. In the final version of the opening, the three are fully visible. Next, we see the courtyard of the prison flipping upside down and Jolene falling upwards, showing her escape from the prison. Next is the usual opening scene of all of the main characters attacking. Some interesting details, though, are that Anasui is using his all-star battle colors in this scene, and that Emporio's shooting is based on a panel from the Made in Heaven fight. We also get a shot of FF showing her ascent after her death. This is a nice touch that the season itself also honors by giving a bit more focus to FF after she was no longer part of the story. Next, we get the confrontation between Jolene and Pucci standing in the shallow ocean. This should be recognizable to anyone as the location of the group's final battle with him. The final shot has Jolene slowly start running towards the camera. This is a reference to a similar shot in the series' first opening, Sonochi no Sadame, where Jonathan does the same. The shot is similar in other ways too. For Jonathan, it starts on his arm being filled with Hamon, while for Jolene, we see her activating her stand and being covered with an aura. At the end, we also see both with fire in their eyes. This is more than just decoration, and is actually a phenomenon referred to in the series as dark determination. It's essentially a visual indication of a character's intense resolve to do something. The actual name Dark Determination was first used in Part 7, but the first instance of it is actually in Part 6, where both Jolene and Weather are seen with it. The anime retroactively added this effect to other characters, such as Jonathan in Sonochi no Sadame, as well as Yukiko and Stray Cat in Part 4. That's everything from the normal opening, but as with every final JoJo opening since Part 3, there's a new version that makes some changes. The first change is, as I mentioned earlier, an image behind Weather Report clearing up to show Perla's suicide. And the other change I mentioned, the Sons of Dio no longer being obscured. The big changes start from the scene in the courtyard, where Jotaro appears and stops time, only for his time stop to be cut short by Pucci, as it happens in the Made in Heaven arc. Next, we get a series of manga panels of the other protagonists before eventually getting to Jolene in the hallway. This is another homage to Sonochi no Sadame, which began with panels of the protagonists starting with Jolene until going backwards and ending with Jonathan in the same location. Next, we see Jolene facing off against Pucci with the backdrop of the Joestar Mansion, which also appeared in Sonochino Sadame. We also see an image of all the protagonists up to this point, before switching to Jolene and Pucci facing each other in the crumbling mansion, with imagery almost identical to Jotaro facing Dio in Stand Proud. The final shot of the opening shows outer space, and the pendant falling down to the same street that is shown in the story's final scene. That's about everything there is to say about Stone Ocean's final opening. I really enjoyed it in both forms that it appeared in, and it did a wonderful job paying homage to the series and past openings. Some of the ways that it did that were also really subtle, which managed to be even more effective for me when I managed to spot them. The season itself is of course the finale of the original continuity of JoJo that began in Part 1, and also serves as the 10th anniversary milestone of the adaptation itself. The opening is able to reflect this perfectly, and I really enjoyed the ways it called back to what came before, while also still standing out on its own as a good opening for this part of the story. Someday in the future, when we get the next part of the JoJo adaptation, I'm hoping we can see a similar amount of care go into it. If you want to be updated on new videos, join the Hom and Beat Discord using the link in the description. You can also receive rewards like Discord perks and some uncut videos by supporting the channel on Patreon. Another reward I offer is the Patron Q&A, where any patron $1 and above can submit a question for me to answer. I plan on answering at least one question per video, so if you're a patron, don't be shy and submit as many questions as you like. This video's question comes from Christian. He asks, what is my favorite panel from each part from an artistic standpoint? For this one, I'm going to have to avoid Araki's colored illustrations since that would obviously overshadow the manga itself. For part 1, I would have to choose the page depicting the death of Jonathan. It's great and has a really old school feeling. For part 2, I really enjoy this page of Joseph holding up Lisa Lisa. First because it's a good showcase of Araki's art style at that time, and because it plays with perspective in a nice way. For part 3, it has to be this double spread from Dio's introduction. It has a great amount of detail and is also a great payoff for the huge hyping up that Dio got throughout that story. For part 4, it's this page from the Highway Star fight, where Josuke destroys the bike to avoid hitting the baby. Like the previous panels, great perspective and detail, and reading it naturally in the story makes it really stand out from the hectic chase going on. For part 5, it's this panel from the end of the fight with White Album. For part 6, my favorite is the spread of Jolene turning around to face Pucci. Mid to late part 7 contains my favorite art style of Araki's, so it's really impossible to choose just one. So I'll stick with one from my personal favorite fight, this spread of the gun from the battle with the 11 men. In part 8, I really love this page with the first appearance of Speed King. As someone who was reading at the time when this first appeared, it was really effective. And for the spin-off, Thus Spoke Shibe Rohan, I choose this page of Yoma running backwards on the treadmill. Thank you for watching. This is the part of the video where I thank my $5 and up patrons. Thank you to Alex Ramirez, Doorbell, Ashton Joseph Miller, Crayon, Rigo Vids, Sukato, Sentai, Pumpkin Doge, Marrow, Almighty Quarth, Oof, Cowrie, Halil, Gatlin Grove, Lime Jinjo, 17-Hit Combo, Phantom Kai, Sponge Cake, Kekext, Feliciano Rabaja, Rayana Meme, and Christian McDonough.